Welcome back for another episode of Seeking Discovery. I'm glad you chose to join us today with our bus adventure. So today we're working on a project I've been looking forward to for a while. It's not the entire project, but it's a start. And the project that I'm talking about is the rooftop deck. So as I'm getting things ready for spray foam, I'm trying to keep a list in my head of what needs to be installed before they come in and spray foam everything. And one of those is the support anchors for the rooftop deck. So what I chose to do is use black pipe. So I've got it here already, cut to length. And for my bus, I did that at 54 inches because that's approximately the span of the ribs at the rear of the bus. And once you put your fittings and things like that on there, you'll add some extra length. So I went a little bit shorter than the actual measurement, hoping that it'll all balance out with those fittings. So ultimately I got two pieces that were 1¼ inch diameter, 10 foot long, and at my local big box store, they were able to cut and thread it to my length that I needed. And I was able to pick up all the other fittings that I needed, except for the flanges, which will ultimately mount to the ribs. So I got the flanges off of Amazon, so if you guys are looking to do something similar, I'll put a link in the description for those because that's what I had the hardest time finding. All the other fittings I was able to get at the store itself for the 1¼ inch pipe. Now I've seen people use 2-inch, 1.5 inch, but I think both of those are overkill for this purpose, especially because I'll have 3 anchor points on each side, and basically once these are all put together, they will run along the side of the bus, either side, and that is ultimately what the deck will be anchored into in the future. So that's what I'm going to get working on. We're going to start assembling these into their pieces and get them all lined up and try to make sure they're all going to fit properly, and then get a coat of paint on it, let them dry, and then in a day or two come back, get them up on the roof, mark the holes, drill them, all of that fun stuff, and then ultimately get them anchored so that we're one step closer to spray foam. One thing I will be using is this thread compound on all of the threads, not so much as a sealant, but actually as a lubricant. So I was talking to one of my friends and they were saying that using this stuff should allow you to get an extra 1, if not 2 thread turns when you're putting all of these fittings on. So that's what I'm going to add to my threads to kind of help lubricate it and get it all together. And we're going to be using a combination of T's and 90-degree pieces to ultimately get the spacing how we need. The long pieces will go in here, and ultimately these will be turned like this with shorter pipes coming out the bottom and then the flange off of those. So I'm going to get the threads with the compound on it and start attaching these with some big pipe wrenches. So as you guys can see here, we've got one pipe with our T fitting and our 90-degree on the other end. So I wanted to just figure out exactly how I want to do it, and then I was going to come back and record the process. So the T went on much easier than the 90, but I think part of that is because I brushed the threads on the T and I did not do that on the 90. So the first step when working with your black pipe is I've just got this wire bristle brush, and I'm going in and brushing the threads to clean them out. I originally tried to wipe them out and that did not work, but the wire brush definitely is doing the trick. There we go. So now that that pipe thread is brushed, we're going to take our pipe thread compound, which is a thick paste. It's a little bit messy. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how much I need to use. So I'm just kind of making this up as I go. This is the first time I've used this compound before. So we're just going to take it and slowly come in and put it all over the threads of the pipe. And this works as a lubricant while we're threading on our fittings so that they should slide easier. There we go, that's pretty good. we're just going to put this back away for now. And I'm going to try another 90-degree fitting because I had so much difficulty with the other one. I want to see if this goes easier. So we've got one of our fittings here. Just going to grab it out of its bag. And it is ready to go on. So we're just going to hand thread it until it's tight. And just like the other one, this didn't go on very easily. So I'm going to move my pipe down. And as you can see, I've got it kind of in this notch here on my sawhorse. Then we're going to come in with one of the pipe wrenches and put it on the head of the fitting like that. Then we're going to come in with the other one. And I like to put them on opposite sides of the sawhorse so that the sawhorse is taking the weight that I'm putting down on these. So the first couple go up pretty easy usually. And the tighter you go, the harder it will get. And you'll kind of figure out your own rhythm, what works for you. For me, it tends to be if I push down on my left arm, I can get it to spin more if I can just hold it in place with my right. And once you get towards the end, I found that little movements work better than trying to do the large ones. And sometimes just giving it a little bit of a bounce also helps. So I think we're going to stop here at this one because when I put it onto the other one that's already assembled, we need them to all line up the same way. So if I tighten this completely, I may not be able to get it lined up properly. So I'm going to stop this one here and get ready to put it on the other one so we have one really long piece, and that will become one of our two anchors for the deck. Now we get to play the game of putting them all together. And now, as I'm doing it, I'm keeping an eye on this end of the pipe as that 90 degree is turning to see that when it gets too tight, I want it to line up where this one is. So we're about 180 degrees off. It's starting to get tight, so I think I'm going to try to get at that last 180 degrees and probably stop there. We take a look at the threads on the inside. And there's not a lot of threads left, so I'm not going to try to force it anymore. What I'm going to do instead is set it on the floor of the bus and see if the fittings all sit nicely. Ultimately, when we put our other little piece of pipe in the flange on, we should be able to tweak it a little bit if we need to, but this will at least give us an idea. And just looking at it, it looks like it's pretty good. You can get a workout in while you're working with it. It's definitely has weight to it. And you guys can't really see it, but it is sitting pretty flush on the floor, so I'm going to stop this one where it's at. So last time I was talking about the rooftop deck mount and getting all of that put together and secured. So ultimately I did get all of that together, and then I took it out back behind the bus. I put a coat of Rust-Oleum primer on it, as well as enamel on top of that, the same way that I treated the floors of the bus, just to help protect it and make it better. Once it was dried and ready to go, it was time to figure out how to mount it on the ceiling. So basically what I did is I got them up on the roof where I wanted them, took a piece of wood and set it across them, so that I could figure out where they needed to be on the pitch of the roof so that the boards would sit nice and level in the end. So ultimately got them up there, marked all of the holes from the flanges, and then came back, pre-drilled them, then put the final size drill bit in to put our holes in, added a whole bunch of butyl tape, and then put the bolts and washers back through, and then a washer and a nut on the inside of the bus. And I have some time lapse of that, so I'll throw up some of that stuff right now while we're going through it, and I'm going to walk back to where the anchors are so that you guys can see how I secured it to the bus frame itself. So ultimately, there are 3 flanges on each side of the rail, and as you can see here, they came through the rib, and I put a washer and lock nut on the holes, and ultimately that is creating a solid anchor point to the frame of the bus so that it'll be able to stay secured while driving. I used 1/4-inch bolts through the flanges, and keep in mind, these bolts aren't supporting the weight of the deck as much as they are just stopping it from moving. All of the weight is distributed across the ribs, through the flanges, through the metal, all of that. So these are merely to maintain security while driving and to stop the deck from sliding or moving, but it's not carrying the full weight of the deck. So I pulled on the bars a whole bunch. The whole bus rocks when you yank on it. So I'm fairly confident that these will not be an issue in the future and they should stay nice and secure. The last step for the roof deck system will be to add a whole bunch of caulk around it to make sure it's sealed so that we don't have any leaks in the future. But got that up yesterday, so here's a shot of what it looks like from the top of the bus, and ultimately I'm really happy with how this turned out. If you like this kind of content, be sure to give it a big thumbs up and leave a comment below what you guys want to see next and what questions you have about the bus build. And if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to show the support for the channel, and share it with a friend if you found this information useful. As always, we'll see you guys in the next video.